So thanks everyone for joining us today for this webinar. We're conscious that everyone's kind of inundated with webinars at the moment, and I'm the same. I open my email every morning and there's 400 emails saying, please, why don't you register for this webinar? It'd be great. So we wanted to try something a little bit different, and so what we've got here is we're gonna have a full, frank, honest, and open discussion, and warts and all, hopefully not too many warts, with Richard Stone, who's a pre-sales consultant from ONI, who's one of our customers. So we really want to encourage people to ask questions. So I've just put a message in the chat. So if you want to just drop a message in the chat if you've got any questions. We've already had a whole bunch of questions submitted by email, so thanks to everyone who submitted those as well. But yeah, that's kind of how this is going to work. We've got, we could go for an hour, we could go for 40 minutes, but we'll go as long as we absolutely need to. In fact, it's a 45-minute webinar, so let's try and keep it to that. So yeah, just a quick introductions. So this chap here is me. So I'm Kev Johnson. I'm systems engineer at Runecast. My job basically is to speak to customers and make sure that we can solve the problems that they're having in their environments, and also make sure that they're aware of the features that we have. So I'll be covering off some of the stuff a little later in this webinar, just a very, very high level overview in case you haven't already heard of Runecast Analyzer. So yeah, outside of work, I like walking, I like watching Scottish football, I like eating cheese, I like traveling. Only one of those is valid at the moment, so I'm kind of eating a lot of cheese. I'm really sorry about, this is what happens in lockdown. I haven't been able to get my hair cut in about 2.5 months, and a couple of days ago I thought I'd figured out some kind of style that worked. Yeah, it's not really working. But yeah, so that's me. Up on the screen there. Prior to joining Runecast, I worked for VMware as tech marketing architect for vSphere Lifecycle. So a lot of the stuff that you see going into vSphere 7 now, things like vSphere Lifecycle Manager, I was kind of working on that kind of stuff. If you're interested in anything I've got to say, you can find my blog at v-it.pro. You can catch me on the Open TechCast podcast, so that's available on iTunes and wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can catch me on Twitter as @Kev_Johnson. I'm just going to hand across to my colleague Paul Donnachie now, who's going to introduce himself.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you for coming on to the webinar. So I joined Runecast in January this year, and I manage our business in the UK and Ireland. So ONI are one of our long-standing clients in that territory. Been working in technology for 5 years, just over now, having started with Softcat and then working on CA Technologies monitoring platforms. And so strong experience in infrastructure technology. I'm a very avid Celtic fan, which again is taken away from me at the moment, and living in Prague. So this isn't an illegal haircut. We can go to the barbers in Prague. So yeah, thank you very much. Looking forward to the session.
Cool. And if you want to introduce yourself, Richard.
Yeah, so I'm Richard Stone. I'm a pre-sales consultant and cloud scale architect over at ONI, managed service provider. Been a long time in the IT industry. If anyone can remember back to the days of Windows for Work groups, that's about when I started. Yeah, exactly. I'm self-taught VMware and storage expert. Used to, whilst I was at Selfridges, that happened. That was a long time ago. That was about VMware 3 when that first started. I started my VMware career. Moved into managed services about 10 years ago, focusing on VMware. And at ONI, I'm responsible for building all of our cloud services and architecting our IaaS, our BaaS, and DRaaS, and all of the other AAS services that we do.
You don't look old enough to have done all that stuff, but let's leave it at that.
I have no British on my profile, I'm afraid.
Yeah, you've photoshopped that, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm just going to move on very quickly. I just realized I should have put the agenda before this, but just quickly going through this, we've done the introductions. In a moment, we're going to have an overview of the ONI NIMBUS platform. So Richard's going to talk you through what they do, what kind of customers they have. Then I'm going to give you a brief overview of Runecast Analyzer. Then we'll have the chat. So please, again, we've not had any questions submitted into the chat window as yet. So please get your questions in. and we'll address those once we've gone through these. So on that note, I'm going to pass back over to you, Richard, so you can talk about ONI. If you just let me know when you want your next slide.
Great. So as you can see, ONI was established in about 1992. We are a 24/7 operation. We're the owner operator of our own data center, which we bought about 10 years ago now, and it's been fully operational with 100% availability for just over 9 years now. If you look at our website, there's a counting clock. Very proud of the fact that we're zero downtime on that, but not only that, on our managed services as well. We're a very tech-heavy organization, and a large part of what we do is managed services. About 75% of our revenue now is recurring revenue through our managed services that we offer. So if you go on to the next. Something that we put in place about 3 years ago now is our business assured message. And what the business assured message is about that 100% availability. Why would you choose that data center on the left when it's exactly the same on the right, but just with 100% SLA? And it's not just on the data center that we offer that SLA, it's on all of the managed services within that data center as well. Runecast is one of the...
It's quite
yeah,
clear. Yeah, I mean, what's that 0.001% of uptime? That's still, it's a fairly significant, you don't want that outage, even if it feels tiny, but then you kind of work out how many minutes a year that's going to be. Yeah,
absolutely.
And when you start looking at cloud-based services as well, and you're looking at 4 nines potentially, you need to build it, you need to be aware of these things. So 100% uptime is an amazing SLA, especially given how long you've been running it.
And we back it with a 25% service credit per incident as well.
Wow.
So yeah, we really put our money where our mouth is, and we've never paid one, which we're very proud of. So
either you've got really good lawyers or you've just got a really great service, right?
It's the technology. So if you move on to the next slide, I'll talk about the technology we've used to build our clouds.
Absolutely.
So the diagram is split between 2 data centers. So our data centers are in Luton, which we own and operate, and one in Hoddesdon, which is just near Tottenham, if you know your London geography. And we stretch our VMware environment between the 2 sites. So it's actually 2 discrete VMware vClouds, and we stretch via the network planes. So our tenants, our internal networks are stretched. So they have, all our customers have their networks. They can have VMs in both data centers and all on the same layer 2 network. We stretch the management plane to be able to monitor that. We also stretch the internet plane between them. So we have multiple ISPs all coming into both data centers over a mesh of ASR routers, which all act as a single namespace. So we can have our IP. If we were unlucky enough to lose a data center, the surviving data center can have the same IP, public IP network. So it's one of the things that is a unique thing from ONI is we use Zerto, and we can protect a firewall from one data center to the other, and when it comes up at the other side, it doesn't even know it's moved from a public address space perspective. Very clever. Another thing, if you notice, we're using VMware, which is class leading. We're using Zerto, which is class leading. We're using NetApp, which is class leading. We're using Cisco, that is class leading. But we're also using class leading monitoring platforms, SolarWinds, Veeam, and in this particular webinar, most important, Runecast.
Yep. It's in the post.
Absolutely. But we're very proud of that 100% availability, business assured message, and Runecast absolutely allows us to deliver that because it gives us that visibility of anything that we need to rectify on our platform. Obviously, you're going to ask me some questions in a minute. I think there'll be more there. So hopefully that's a good overview of our services.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting architecture. And normally, if I you know, from an architecture perspective, any kind of stretch layer 2 normally fills me with terror, but you've got this 100% uptime, so you know you're obviously doing something right. So
absolutely.
yeah, cool.
We don't do it with a logical VMware layer. We're not using Metro cluster. We're not using anything overly complex. The primary data center, well, the two data centers, they both have their own completely separate, discrete VMware vClouds. They are completely logically separate. So there's no logical area that can take down both sites. We literally stretch at Q&Q Cisco layer, Nexus, Q&Q trunking.
Okay.
So we're stretching the data plane for each customer, but we're also stretching the management plane when we're stretching the internet plane, all using Cisco technologies, completely separate from the underlying architecture.
Fantastic. Yeah. Love it. Okay, great. And you know, if anyone's got any questions about, we do have a question. So people are submitting the questions, so we'll come down to those questions in a short while. But first, I'm just going to give you a very brief overview of Runecast Analyzer. As I say, hopefully, I'm looking at the names. I've seen some people that I've seen on some of these webinars in the past, but also some names that I'm not familiar with. So I'm just going to run through a very brief overview of what Runecast Analyzer does. So as you can see up on the screen, 90% of VMware software-defined data center problems are caused by known issues. These issues are documented in knowledge base articles, they're documented in best practices, and also things like, you know, from a security perspective, we want to make sure that you're running in a secure and compliant manner. So we can do all of these checks, and we can continuously check against these kind of benchmarks. But what we want to do is kind of really help you by flagging up any risks that exist in your environment. So if you've got, you know, a configuration whereby you're running a specific build of ESXi and you know, some configuration settings that are configured, maybe even on a virtual machine basis, the combination of those could cause a purple screen of death. And there's a whole bunch of knowledge base articles that will call these out to you, but nobody looks at those knowledge base articles until they've had the outage. With Runecast Analyzer, you have that visibility into the problems that you've got in your environment before you suffer those outages, or before the auditors come in and fail you for your PCI DSS or something like that. So this is roughly what Runecast Analyzer looks like from a logical perspective. So we have a Runecast Analyzer appliance that you deploy on premises into your environment, and from there you can monitor your vSphere environment, you can monitor NSX, you can monitor Horizon, you can even monitor your AWS environment. So we have a whole bunch of checks that we perform for various numbers of AWS services. But the important thing is all of this happens on premises in your data center. So you're not sending any data to any kind of cloud-based service. Even the updates can be done offline. You can download them from your customer portal and apply them to the appliance on premises without having to expose those to the internet. The magic really happens in the cloud for us, so where our AI assisted knowledge parser exists. So we have this behemoth of an engine that scans the VMware knowledge base. It scans a whole bunch of other different sources of data for updates. So when there's an update, that engine will check and make sure that it's valid. It then comes down, and all of these updates are validated by our team of engineers. And we're pushing out knowledge updates. So these are definition updates. So new knowledge base articles, updates to the HCL. I didn't mention the HCL yet, but we'll cover that as well. Any of these updates, they come down once a week, unless it's something like a VMSA. If it's a VMSA, we have that down in your appliance within 24 hours. So that's pretty important. And also my slide, I've just realized, is out of date because it states patent pending rules engine. So that is now a patented rules engine. So we have the patent for that. So, you know, that is our unique special source in there. So I'm just going to crack on. These are the kind of problems that we solve. So if you've got break fix, everything is reactive. We want to help you be more proactive. If you're dealing with compliance, then you know if you've got to be PCI DSS, or if you've got to be HIPAA compliant, or DISA STIG, or NIST, or all of these various different terminologies, there are definitely tools out there that can help you. Runecast Analyzer does it all within the appliance for no extra cost. So you just go into the appliance, you turn on the baselines, and you're going to be continuously scanned against those baselines. We even have a vRealize Orchestrator plugin that can really help you to to bring your environment in line with those security profiles. Best practices, again, we're going to scan your environment and let you know where you're not abiding by these industry standard best practices. So, you know, we just want to help you have the most efficient, best run software-defined data center out there. And this applies to VMware Cloud on AWS as well. So we're certified for that platform too. So we're just looking at getting rid of the complexity, helping you save time and thus save money and remove risk from your environment. That is the potted history of, and you know, what Runecast Analyzer can do for you. So at that point, I'm going to move on, and let's move on and we'll have a bit of a chat. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and you can all focus on our ugly mugs instead. So first things first then, Richard, what were the challenges that you were facing prior to you know, in implementing Runecast Analyzer? What kind of issues were you trying to address when you bought into the product?
The main challenges were lots of man hours constantly checking the latest KB articles and reports, and cross-checking those against HCLs for each component, because at the end of the day, we were trying to build a 100% uptime system. And before Runecast, it's almost like painting the fourth bridge. You're literally going through, when you've got hundreds of hosts across multiple clusters, each host is very slightly different from a hardware perspective. So it'll be a different HCL. You're doing upgrade checking, you're doing patching, you're looking for known issues and then trying to patch, but you might not be able to put the patch on all hosts. So the amount of effort and time to manually go through your environment, that you're only doing it about every 3 or 4 months, which means you're opening yourself up to huge risk of potential outages. Yeah, that was the main thing. It's the amount of time, but also trying to be a bit more proactive on making sure the infrastructure didn't go down.
Okay, cool. And because that's obviously vital, because you know you're paying out 25% service credit if you have any outages. So you need to make sure you're not spending that money, right? Okay, cool. So that's really helpful to hear. So what features what are your kind of favorite features that you use on a day-to-day basis with Runecast Analyzer?
Favorite one's interesting. I mean, the main one has got to be the constant analytics, using that no longer patent pending analyzer, looking for those vulnerabilities that could cause the purple screen death that we so desperately don't want to happen on our platform. But also security breaches. The security for a managed service provider is huge on the importance list, because you certainly don't want the negative publicity of a security breach, or literally you don't want your customers to get a security breach. So
absolutely,
the constant analytics gives us that warm fuzzy feeling inside, because obviously it just gives us that priority list of things that we need to tick off and fix. Without that work of looking against hardware compatibility lists, it just provides it all for you in the most critical issues, the sort of the red, amber, green type approach of what the operations team just need to do. It just becomes a task list, and it's there every day for you automatically.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that sounds like it's really helpful. From a, you know, and security is obviously a massive concern for a lot of customers. So just kind of staying on that note for a second, and do you leverage any of the specific knowledge profiles within there, or do you just kind of turn them all on and go, right, well, okay, we're gonna handle them all, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, we turn lots of them on, and we also use things like PCI DSS as well, so for compliance and that sort of thing, because we have customers that have compliance needs as well, potentially need some reports being run. But yeah, in terms of the analytics, we do turn most of them on, but we also use the pre-upgrade checking, because obviously as a service provider, we also need to make sure that we're also running the latest and greatest that you can. Obviously, you never go to the most recent when it's first released, otherwise back to that issue of 100% availability wouldn't be quite there.
You only live once.
Yeah.
I don't run a data center, so that's probably why.
But we run Runecast on all of our platforms, the backup and our DR platform and test dev platforms, as well as our live platforms. We have multi-tenanted and dedicated customer platforms, lots of platforms. We run it across them all. But clearly, we do our upgrade checking on our dev test platform first. So that's why Runecast is primarily there, so that we can so that we can do that upgrade process first on our dev test platform, and then on our DR platform, and then on our live platforms.
Before you move to production. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So that's super helpful. So where did you first come across Runecast Analyzer?
Yeah, that was when we were in Barcelona at VMworld in 2016. So it's actually before we had the 100% business assured message. So I was over in Barcelona with our cloud services manager, Gordon Howes, and we came across the Runecast stand, and immediately we just thought, this is great. This is a cracking piece of software. We were chatting to your guys on the stand for about an hour, I think. But we didn't realize at the time we didn't realize how much we would soon need it, because we came back, and it's only a few months after we came back from Barcelona that our director said, we want to do this business assured message. We've had our data center up now for 6 years at the time. It's now 9 years. Was it 5 years at the time? It's now 9 years. We didn't have that message, but they wanted to do this business assured message because the data center is up for this amount of time. We want to apply it to all of our managed services as well. How can we do that? And we said, well, we're already very robust with our architecture, but we've got this problem with the constant patching and sort of 3 months out of date on applying latest patches securely. So we knew exactly the product to use because of being at VMworld. So yeah, 2016, VMworld, and 3 months after we got back, it was a key part of our infrastructure.
Awesome. Cool. So I mean, what's the I guess the impact is that it's you've got this 100% uptime guarantee, and you say it says you've had that now for for almost 9 years, which is amazing, even though you've not been selling it as that until like sort of 4 or 5 years ago. So I think that's amazing. What have the other impacts been? Has it freed up your staff, or does it help in any other ways?
Well, the amount of time it saves it does vary each month depending on what you're doing, because you don't obviously patch a version of VMware every month, but it averages out to probably about 6 or 7 days a month on the size of our platform. But I'm sure it would be quite a few days a month for any size of platform, because the amount of effort involved in doing all the HCL and KV checking. But for a size of a platform as ours, it can be as much as 10 or 12, depending on if you're doing a big upgrade in a month of man days, which is considerable.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. And so I'm just going to move on to we had some questions come in by email prior to this. We've had a few come in also on the chat, so that's amazing. Thank you so much. If anyone else has any questions, please do fire them across, and we'll make sure we cover these off. But so the first question that came in by email was, how did you convince the budget holders that at ONI that Runecast would be essential for your organization?
It's an interesting question.
Every business is different when it comes to writing business cases. So
because the directors were actually coming to us saying, how can we implement this business assured message? And
it's a nice place to be.
So yeah, so they were asking us, what do you need to do it? So it was immediately on mine and Gordon's minds that this was the right product. So we didn't really need to do that much convincing. And to be fair, it's actually, it has a cost to it, but it's not extortionate considering how much people costs it saves. So when you actually do your ROI analysis, it actually works out pretty well and favorably anyway. So it's actually quite an easy sell.
Yeah, I remember when I first spoke to the company, obviously long before I joined the company, we started talking about costs, and I got my first quote across, and I seem to recall that my immediate response was that it was missing at least a 0. But in terms of the cost benefits analysis, it's we're working really hard at the moment to kind of build like a return on investment calculator, so to really help with the business case discussion. But it's really interesting to hear that you had it, the conversation went the other way, in as much as your business had, we're going to do this, what do we need in order to do this? So that's great. So the next question we've had in is, how much time did it take to deploy and perform the scans?
It didn't take that long at all to deploy. You said you put that first machine in with the analyzer on, you point it at all your vCenters and give it the security access to all your vCenters, and that's pretty much it. You get that done within a couple of hours. The scans literally take seconds because it's a fully indexed database that already has access to all those KB articles, and really all it's getting from the vCenter databases is all the hardware versions that you have of all your platforms and the software versions that you have installed on it. But that's all readily accessible in the vCenter database. So the scans are very, very, very quick. But you leave it running all the time. So you have a dashboard on Runecast, and it just gives you your priority list all the time, and it's just constantly adjusting for whatever it finds at the time. So if a new KB article goes on board, it's immediately on your report in your dashboard.
Yeah, especially if it's like a critical severity, it gets flagged straight up at the top. And yeah, I really like that feature. It's you know, you set a schedule, and you run a scan once a day, once a week, however often you need to, and then you've just got that history of your compliance as well. So you know, you've got a year's worth of data on the appliance, which is you know, I think it's amazing. And you know, it's the amount of time that it takes to get the value out of the product. You know, the feedback that we get from customers is, you know, we expect that just the process of doing a scan should take hours, and we return information in 2-3 minutes. So you know, that's super important. So that's good. We do have another question, which was, did you evaluate any other options when you were looking at, you know, the tools that you needed to do that job, other than Runecast Analyzer?
To be fair, it's a fairly unique product in the market space. We couldn't find anything that did exactly what Runecast does. There's other products that monitor health. We use SolarWinds already. We use Veeam already. There's VMware tools as well, but they're not doing exactly the same thing. They're not doing pre-upgrade checks. They're not doing constant knowledge base versus your exact hardware compatibility versus vulnerability versus security issues checks. So did we evaluate anything else? Not really, not 4 years ago, because we couldn't find anything else.
Yeah, I think we've got quite a unique place in the industry, in as much as there are definitely products out there where there is a degree of overlap. But you know, the way we like to look at it is, you know, people use those products already. We're not looking to compete with them. We're looking to extend their capabilities. And you know, we get asked all the time, like, oh well, things like, oh well, you know, do you monitor for CPU ready? It's like, well, no, there's a million other products on the market that will monitor those statistics for you. It's not something there's no point us building another tool that does the same thing, but isn't dedicated to doing it. So it's probably not going to do the job as well. So yeah, it's good to hear that, you know, well, I suppose it's good to hear that you know, you didn't see any other products out there on the market that did exactly what you needed. But you know, as time goes on, we keep adding new features and new features and new features, and some of our competitors, you know, they're doing similar sorts of things as time goes on. But I don't think anyone does it in the way that we do it, as lightweight as we do it, and you know, as quickly and I guess I really hate to bring pricing into it, but as inexpensively or with as much value as we do it. So that's good. One more question was, if you were just starting with Runecast Analyzer now, is there anything you would do differently, or would you pretty much just follow the same routes?
I don't think we would do this. There isn't really another product that provides that sort of warm, fuzzy feeling that I mentioned earlier, that gives you that confidence to keep that 100% service availability and not pay those service credits. We obviously can't do without SolarWinds, which is monitoring all of our hardware, all of our networking, and Veeam, which is monitoring things like CPU ready times and the health of the VMs and the health of the virtual infrastructure itself from a performance and metrics perspective. It's not what Runecast is for. Runecast is making sure that we don't have purple screens of deaths, making sure that we don't have security holes. So no, we wouldn't do it differently. We'd definitely implement it again now. It's been 4 years since we put it in. Have I checked to see if there's anything else? Honestly, no. But I know this works so well, I probably wouldn't even look.
That's good to hear. It's good to hear. So at that point, I'm going to just hand this across to Paul. I think you've got some questions. I've just realised I stole one of your questions there, so I do apologise, Paul.
All my preparation. I suppose one of the main ones. How often? And first of all, thank you very much for the fourth bridge metaphor, because I'll definitely be using that. It's absolutely gold. So how much time on average would your ops team spend in the product? Are they analysing on a daily basis and checking in the morning? Is there a particular cadence?
Again, that probably depends on what task they're doing in the day, but they will certainly look at it in their daily checks every morning as a part of their set routine. When they're looking at backup jobs, they're looking at the VM1 reports, they look at the Runecast output, so they can build their task for that day and solve any potential issues. So how much time do they actually spend? Not long at all. It really depends on how much is in the list, how much it's found, to be fair, but they're not really spending the time with Runecast. They're spending the time rectifying the issues that Runecast has found. So it's only minutes in Runecast. It might be 10 minutes or 3 hours rectifying the issues that Runecast has found. But if they're doing an upgrade, clearly you're doing the pre-upgrade checks on all the different potential platforms. So you might spend more time in it on that particular day or week.
That's good to hear. I think it's a benefit of Runecast that it's a monitoring tool that you don't get bogged down in. I mean, it tells you what you need to do, then you can go do it very, very quickly. And I mean, you've touched on how easy the deployment process was. How have you found that Runecast has scaled since ONI have grown in the last 5 years or so? 4 years.
Yeah, it scales out with your clusters, and so it's only really adding new vCenters in. If you add new vCenters in, we've got that many different platforms in different data centers. Yeah, we are adding new vCenters quite regularly, but that's a simple process and it scales very easily. The way it functions, it hasn't changed at all. It's still one nice and easy list of things to do. Obviously, there might be some more clusters listed in that list, but with the same problem, because normally if it finds a problem in one of the environments, it finds it across all of the environments, so it's multiple entries in the list. But it scales perfectly well.
That's very good to know. And in terms of a bit more on not so much the commercial, but the day-to-day side of things away from the tech, how do you find Runecast to deal with from a support perspective, from a sort of business perspective as much as anything? So when it comes to the point of renewal, any discussions around needing more licenses, additional support, do you find it a good process? Or?
I'm not possibly the best person to ask that within ONI. That would probably be better for my colleague Gordon Howes, who's the Cloud Services Manager. However, I believe you're a very easy organisation to work with. Not that there's many calls that we need to log with you, to be fair. It works.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Are there any other questions from the Q&A at this stage, Kevin? Are you monitoring?
Yeah, so we've had 3 more questions. So the first question that came in: do you use vCloud Director Federation? So I should at this point mention that we don't actually have any integration as things stand right now with vCloud Director. However, obviously vCloud Director runs on top of vSphere. We do have vCloud Director integration as a roadmap item, so that will be coming in the not too distant future. But I guess the question was probably more focused at yourself, Richard. Are you using vCloud Director Federation? I'm not a VCD guy myself, so.
Quite sure what the question means from that perspective. Do you mean, does that mean integrating Runecast with vCloud Director and federating that way?
No, so we don't have any integration as things stand with vCloud Director. I think it's because you have the 2 separate vClouds. one in each site? Do you federate them together? I guess that's the question. As I say, I'm a vSphere guy, not a vCloud guy, I'm afraid.
No, we do that. We purposely don't do that. We make sure that our two DCs are complete isolated installations, and we do that more from an uptime perspective, and stopping that split brain kind of that's where a metro cluster often goes wrong. Is an issue that occurs on one side actually causes a fault on the other side, and you don't fail over correctly. Whereas if you have something like Zerto managing your disaster recovery, or you do application level, so you've got application redundancy, such as a DAG group split across two DCs, you're doing it at the application level, and there's no VMware communicating between the two. You're doing all the communicating in the network layer. You don't have that split brain or an issue that can take down both DCs in one go. So we've designed it specifically without federation from a VMware perspective.
Cool. Awesome. Hopefully that answers your question there. The next question we got was, since having 100% uptime, how often do you get, well, I guess you've had that 100% uptime longer than you've had Runecast Analyzer, but the question was, since you kind of started selling that as a product feature, how often do you get issues reported in Runecast Analyzer?
It's an interesting point. I mean, the fact that we've got 9 years uptime on our website that's the uptime of our data center without a power outage to any of our racks within the data center, any power interruption at all within the data center. Our NIMBUS cloud platform has been live for approximately 6 years now, and we've had the 100% business assured on that platform for 4 years now. So we haven't had the business assured on our NIMBUS platform without Runecast. That came in, we put Runecast in when we brought that service live on NIMBUS. So yes, it's just the way that it's reported on our website is based on the data center.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. So I guess the question is kind of asking, you know, how much of a contribution do you think Runecast Analyzer has made to that 100% uptime guarantee? Do you think you could have done it without Runecast Analyzer?
We'd have been relying on a lot more luck. I wouldn't have slept as comfortably, put it that way, because although we have very diligent staff and very competent staff that are all fully qualified, there's only so many hours in a day, and if you're like that painting the fourth bridge analogy, if you are literally upgrading that one platform over here, and the amount of time it takes to upgrade that platform, you're also doing a day job at the same time and serving customers at the same time. So you can't keep them all juggling with the amount of work that you have to do. Now Runecast is giving us a nice distinct task list. Upgrade those particular hosts, because there's a firmware on that host that can potentially cause a blue screen of death. You just upgrade the firmware on that host as a task, so it reduces what they have to do and how long it takes to research what they have to do, so they can get 10 times done in a tenth of the time. So it means that we're more up to date with less vulnerabilities all of the time. So
okay.
Yes,
I guess it really helps to say like a prioritization tool as well. So you know, you see immediately, okay, well, there's all this red stuff, we need to deal with the red, and then we can move on to the rest of it. And sometimes you deal with the red and that actually makes some of the other stuff go away as well. So that's always helpful.
It's not specific how often things come in, because the second part of that question was how often do alerts happen within the platform. It really depends on what happens in the KB articles and what happens in the in the space that the analyzer is looking at for things being found out in the industry. Because if a new issue arises, it arises within Runecast. So it depends on what's discovered around vulnerabilities within both hardware and firmware, as well as software issues within VMware patches themselves. So
absolutely. And you know, the day that any company out there, whether it's hardware or software, is able to ship something that has no bugs in it, I guess we're all out of a job. But you know, I've been in the industry long enough to know that that's not likely to happen anytime soon. As you know, as anyone, as I always liked when I was a consultant to say, if a vendor comes to you and tells you that their product is without bugs, yeah, you should not buy anything from that vendor, because they've got a bridge to sell you as well.
Well, they're not developing.
So we have one other question, and then I guess we'll sort of look to wrap up. And the final question was, apart from the fact that Runecast doesn't connect to the internet, how is it different from VMware's Skyline? And so I'll address that in a second. I'd be interested actually, Richard, do you folks use VMware Skyline at ONI?
Not that I'm aware of. I'd have to check with our cloud team.
Okay, cool. So VMware Skyline offering has a number of benefits, and you know, to be completely frank, you know, everyone should really be using it if they can. So if your security posture allows you to send your data to the internet, to the VMware Analytics Cloud, then absolutely you should do that. There are so many benefits to it. However, VMware Skyline does not provide coverage for 100% of the VMware knowledge base. It's a very, very small subsection of that. And the process to get those knowledge base articles into the Skyline definitions, so to have checks built into Skyline, is reactive. So it's based on evidence. So if there's specific knowledge base articles that are generating a lot of tickets one month, then you're likely to see the checks come into Skyline Analyzer. The other thing to bear in mind there is, you know, you don't have any visibility with Skyline as to the problems that you might be having from within the vSphere client. So if anything is discovered in your environment, you have to go and log into the Skyline portal in order to view that. So again, these are Skyline as a feature is great. It's free if you've got support with VMware, so that I don't see any real reason why you wouldn't want to use it. But there's a lot of stuff that Runecast Analyzer does that kind of goes above and beyond Skyline. And things like, for example, the hardware compatibility list checks that Richard's referenced quite a lot of times. Things like the security compliance checks. So if you want to be able to check yourself for PCI DSS compliance, Skyline isn't going to help you there. There's a compliance pack for vRealize operations. But again, we have some fairly major differences between the ways that we perform our checks and the ways that the compliance packs for vRealize operations do their checks. So yeah, there's a lot different. There is an amount of overlap. I'll be 100% clear on that. But my personal feeling and the feedback that I get from customers is that, you know, we want to run Skyline, but we also want to run Runecast Analyzer. And you know, that gives us a whole bunch of extra benefits. So on that note, we're kind of towards the end of the questions. Oh, we've just had a further question from you there. You'd love to take this for a run in your lab and take this for a spin. So let me just share my screen again. So if you're interested in learning more about Runecast Analyzer, if you visit runecast.com, there's if you up in the top right hand corner of the screen, you can sign up for a free trial, and that gives you a 14-day trial. And if you want to learn anything more, if you email us at innovate@runecast.com, we'll be happy to organize a deep dive and we can really go into all of the features we've discovered. On that note, is there anything more you wanted to say, Richard?
No, thank you very much for inviting me today. It's been really good. And please come visit oni.co.uk as well. Come and take a look at our cloud platforms.
Awesome. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. You know, please join us next time. If you know, let us know your feedback. If you like this kind of format, if you'd like to see more customer stories, if you'd like us to do webinars on, you know, deep dives into specific compliance requirements and things like that, we'd be happy to do these. I love doing these webinars. It's my only way of kind of communicating with the public at the moment, now that we're all in lockdown. But yeah, thanks once again for attending, and we hope to see you next time.